Hola, Osla here from Simply Cuba Tours. Today I wanted to share with you the ways to reduce your carbon footprints whilst traveling. I know we're all still grounded, I know we still cannot go anywhere, but being a sustainable tour company focusing on nature, this is something close to our hearts. So I thought I'll share some tips with you that you may consider when the gates open and we're ready to travel. So the first tip for today is take a longer vacation. I don't know about you, but I haven't had one in 560 days, not that I am counting, and I am certainly looking forward to being able to get on a flight and get away to Cuba and enjoy my holiday. Although it will be a bit more work than a holiday, but it will feel like a holiday. And nevertheless, longer vacation. So why would you consider a longer vacation? There is a few reasons for that. One is that if you stop for a longer amount of time, you're actually being able to step away, switch off, and truly relax. Two, if you're choosing a sustainable travel experience, you get a much deeper cultural immersion while you're away that you get to enjoy. And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the top one actually is about giving back and is about community. So just imagine how amazing you would feel having one of those experiences. The other reason for this is that you're reducing your amount of flights taking in a year. Now, of course, if you are traveling around Europe, there is always the option of driving or catching the train. But if you have to fly somewhere, like getting some out of Australia, it is a great option to go for a longer holiday rather than just go to your Bali long weekend every time there is a long weekend. Food for thought. The other way that you can reduce your carbon footprint is by choosing your airline carefully. So, sure, there is the option on the airline tickets these days to add a certain amount. What I think you can nominate it in most of them to purchase your carbon offset, which is a start. That is a way to go. But given the fact that transportation is the largest portion of tourism's carbon emissions, there are some other things to consider when you are choosing your airline. Things like, do they have any sort of initiatives in place, like using biofuels, or starting to use biofuels, and is there a plan to phase that fully in? Do they have something around using slower speed when they're flying? Did they put winglets on their plane, which makes it more aerodynamic, thus fly using less fuel? Are there better direct flights that you can take whereby you can reduce the amount of times you have to take off and land, because takeoff actually uses the most amount of fuels? Can you fly from an airport where there is not as much idle time on the tarmac? I know some of the biggest airports before the pandemic used to be a challenge. In Perth, there was constant wait and delays due to it being too busy. So, is there a way you can avoid that? Where they're not burning so much fuel, just idling, trying to get out of there. Obviously, as I mentioned, do they offer carbon offset? Um, is there some way that they are looking at reducing weight? Is there a way that you can reduce your weight? Can you pack less? I mean, do you really need to have 6 pairs of shoes and, you know, all that makeup and toiletry with you when you're traveling? Just consider it, what you're packing, and is there any way that they are looking at reducing their wastage? Say, for example, foregoing magazines, which is great for the environment, and there are also some air companies started doing that now due to the virus. Is there any way that they are donating their unused meals? Do they recycle anything that they take with them? Or is there any way that you can support their efforts with green matters? Alrighty, so the next things I kind of already touched on it by saying you should consider direct flights, and one is reduce your stopovers, unless of course you can stay there for a while. Personally, I hate stopovers. I like to get to where I'm going the quickest and most direct routes. Obviously, that's not always possible with some locations, so I have to stop at places, which means that maybe considering staying there for a couple of days. If you have to stop somewhere, can you stay and discover it rather than just travel through? I mean, let's face it, if you're coming to Australia, you would get anywhere one to two stopovers potentially. You could consider stopping in Singapore, you consider stopping in Doha. It's the same if you're traveling from Australia to Cuba, you will get at least two stopovers. Can you stop and discover the areas where you might have to stay over? The other thing I also touched on, kind of, which was to pack light. So it's one thing that we touched on, that the airlines looking at reducing weight. I mean, we all heard about that airline company that taken off one olive and just how much they saved by that. And it wasn't just the fact that they were no longer providing you the olive, thus they didn't have to buy it, but it's also the weight of the olives that they no longer had to carry, so that also added to their fuel efficiency. So I know sometimes we think that it sucks that there is a weight limit, and I have to say, when I am going to Cuba, I do have an extra bag just to take some supplies, so that's a different thing, but my own bag is only about 10 kilos, only taking the necessities for myself, considering shoes, t-shirts, shirts, shorts that I will actually be using, and not taking anything that I will not be using. Things like, books, you might not want to take 6 books with you for your holiday, maybe just take a couple. And also consider how long you're going for. Are you going for that month holiday that we mentioned? Sure, you might want to fill your 23 kilos of luggage, but if not, maybe half of that will do. So just choose carefully when you're packing. Also, choose to travel in small groups. I mean, there is a couple of reasons why we are offering small groups. One is it reduces carbon emission if we got several people together, but the other is that you get to meet new people, not only learn about the Cuban culture, but potentially learn about others' culture as well, who come from around the world, see what they're about, and maybe it will spark your interest to visit their country on your next holiday. You also have a local tour guide with experiences that knows the ins and outs of the places and will get you to where you need to go in the most efficient way. The other thing that I always harp on about is eat local, stay local, buy local. So one thing that we touched on in the previous video was that obviously doing all of this actually supports the community. But the other thing is that by supporting the local community that you're immersing yourself in, that you're visiting in, it actually reduces the transportation of goods to you. So when you're in Cuba and eating at Plata or Casa Ona, it's more than likely that your food comes just from, say, 5 kilometers down the road from the local farmer. It's not going to be coming from international destinations, and it's not going to be coming from the other side of the island. So when you're choosing sustainable travel, this actually meets all of that requirement, helping reduce the carbon footprint. Also, when you're traveling, be mindful of your local resources. Water is a big one in Cuba, as most places actually have water tanks. So when you're having your shower, make sure that you're not just running the water willy-nilly, because it's got an end to it. And if it runs out, you have to wait until that tank gets filled up again. Also be mindful of using the electricity. No need to run the aircon when you are not there, or leave the lights on or the TV on or any other electrical devices, as a matter of fact. And where possible, turn the light off before you leave your room. This also means embrace the challenge that such as reduced water pressure or power outages will mean to you. It is part of everyday life in some of the countries that you may visit. So one, be mindful, and two, embrace the challenge. The last thing is say no to plastic. This is a big one. We always ask that you bring your water bottle with you. This also means say no to plastic bags. So if possible, don't use plastic wrapping or plastic bags on anything. And if you happen to have plastic, just make sure that you get rid of it in the correct manner. Now, going back onto the water bottles, I am actually really looking forward to being able to share this with you guys soon when it becomes available. This is a water flask from Australia. It is actually created by a small company up in the Kimberleys, so it is very local and born and bred. It is sustainable, it is recyclable, and it is amazing at keeping things cool. Apparently works pretty well on champagne. I haven't yet tried it, but I am looking forward to bringing this for you. So if you travel with us, we might be able to share this amazing product with you. But until then, just make sure that you are not using plastic willy-nilly. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you learned something today, and I look forward to catching you soon.